Hello, everybody. My name is Santiago Jaraba. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams in Trumbull, Connecticut. I'm licensed in the state of New York and Connecticut, and I'm here with one of the best insurance agents in the state. His name is Joe. How
Hey
are you doing,
guys,
Joe?
thank you, Santiago. I'm doing great. My name's Joe Carbone. I work with Abbate Insurance in New Haven, and I'm an insurance broker.
Excellent. So, the purpose of this video is to teach you guys why it is important to have insurance when you're buying your first home or an investment property. And I get a lot of questions from my buyers, and Joe, my partner, is going to answer these questions for us.
Yeah.
So, one of the first questions that I usually get is why is it important for first time home buyers to have insurance?
Awesome. So, why is it important for first-time homebuyers to get insurance? Other than the mortgage lender requiring it, it's the biggest asset you're going to be purchasing in your life, one of the biggest. So you want that to be covered properly. God forbid something happens, you don't want to be paying out of pocket for the home again if it either burns down or some peril happens to it.
Okay. What about if somebody falls or gets injure property, and then you get sued? Is that part of the policy?
Yes, so the policy has, I think, 6 different steps to it. Starting off with coverage A is replacement costs, what it costs to rebuild your home. Coverage B is other structures outside your house, so it's covered up to a certain percentage. C is personal property. D is loss of use. And when we get to coverages that you were just talking about, liability, my company likes to exceed the limits of coverage for that. So we either give you $500,000 worth of personal liability, or $1 million, depending on what you want. We never want to go under that. God forbid someone gets hurt, a lawyer gets involved, and they sue you for $300,000, and you only have $100,000 worth of coverage. You'd be paying out of pocket that extra 200 grand. So
Okay.
for
That's a lot of money
for
paid out of pocket.
for an extra
Yeah.
$100 a year, you could have an extra $300,000 worth of liability.
Sometimes people want to save the pennies, but then they're gonna have to pay thousands.
Exactly. It's just like an investment.
Right.
It's cheap now, but in the you're looking for the long run. So
And just to be protected, which is why, and this is one of the topics for the next question, it is important to be with someone that knows about the coverages, right? That's the most important thing about insurance. Overpriced, which is a question that I get a lot. I get a lot of people that are looking for quotes when they're buying a house or an investment property, and sometimes most of the time, people tend to like the policy that is the cheapest
exactly.
without looking at the coverages. So, can you tell me more about prices versus coverages? Why should people contact you, get a quote from you, versus getting a quote from places like Geico, where you
Exactly.
don't see the agent at all?
So you definitely want to have someone like me who, one, has over 40 different companies, carriers. We have Allstate, Progressive, Nationwide, Travelers, a whole bunch. Um, rather than going on a website like, let's say, Geico.
Right. Which, by the way, they don't have an office around this area.
Yeah.
I think it's
And
all over the phone.
yeah, you could barely get a hold of them.
Yes.
You could call me 24/7. I answer the phone. I'll answer any questions. You have to wait on hold for Geico or any other mainstream for an hour.
Hmm.
We do that for you here at Abate. So if we have to contact a carrier, we are the ones going on hold for you. But anyway, being properly covered, why you don't want to go on a Geico website is you'll put in your information. They'll give you a basic policy. Your home is actually worth 500 grand to replace if something were to happen. Um, that's how much coverage you'd want to have, and some. I've seen past clients come to me with their current declaration page. Their house is worth 500,000 to replace, and they're only covered for 400,000. God forbid something happened to that house when they are covered with that company, they'd be paying an extra 100 grand out of pocket to replace.
And keep in mind that materials have gone up.
Yep.
So it's probably more expensive to replace or to rebuild your
Exactly.
property in case something happens to it, right?
Exactly. So right now we're on a like a 9% yearly inflation.
Correct.
So material is just going up. It's starting to slow down right now, but there's also an endorsement you could add to these policies called Inflation Guard. So you could add a 4% inflation, 8% inflation, which we like to do. God forbid we have another inflation and material rises and the house goes up to 550 grand or 600 grand, and you're still left with that 500 grand you originally got from me or your old
Right.
broker. So it adds coverage.
Which is important also to review your policies, the coverages every.
Exactly.
What would you say, every year?
Yeah, every 10 months. So right before your policy's about to expire.
Okay.
If you're with someone like me, we automatically do that. We have a servicing team right here in our office in New Haven who gets the notification right when your policy is about to expire, if it went up, if it decreases, all that stuff, and they take care of it.
Oh, that's very interesting. Which is
Yep.
why that's another reason why it's important to choose an insurance agent that cares about you.
Exactly. Because if you had Geico, you'd get a letter in the mail 2 days before your policy
Yeah. Expires
or renews, and
Yeah.
they'll renew you for an extra $500. You didn't even know it went up.
Exactly.
So
And then if you don't pay it, you are out of coverage, and that's
Exactly.
another issue, right?
exactly.
I also get a lot of people, and you know that we are in the lower Fairfield County area. We're close to the ocean, to the Long Island Sound, and a lot of these houses, not too many, but a good percentage, are in flood zone areas.
Yep.
And I get this question a lot by first-time home buyers, especially because they get scared. They think that, you know, the house is probably gonna get flooded. So a lot of first-time home buyers get scared when a house is in a flood zone. What does it mean to have flood insurance, Joe?
So a flood policy, it's a separate policy other than home insurance. Um, the definition of a flood is what really you'd want to know. The definition of a flood is if body of water surfaces over, I believe it's 2 acres or more. So if a flood isn't, let's say something leaks in your house and your basement's flooded, your laundry machine in their basement
Right.
breaks down and it floods. That's a whole separate part of your homeowners
Correct.
insurance, which
Mhm.
you would want to make sure you're covered for that as well, because that happens quite often. So that's what flood insurance is. There's different areas of flood zones. I believe the most common one I see when you need flood insurance is AE. But just because you're in a flood zone doesn't mean that it's going to flood. It just means you have a higher chance, over 1% chance of it flooding.
Correct. Which in most cases, I have sold houses with flood insurance, and the houses haven't gotten flooded.
Yeah.
In
And-
case something major happens, like a hurricane,
Yep.
something like that. But it's also the likelihood of that happening is really low. The likelihood of a house getting completely floated underwater is really low. So it's not gonna get floated like that. But there is a chance.
Exactly.
That's why the lender requires it, right?
And it's good for you as a real estate agent to ask the previous owner maybe, when's the last time you did have to either, when's the last time it flooded or you made a flood claim. If they've been living there for 30 years and they've never made a claim, but the lender still requires flood insurance, you could bump up the deductibles of a flood policy, which will lower the premium substantially. So instead of paying $1,000 a year, you could bump up the deductibles to $5,000 or even $10,000, since it's never hasn't flooded in 30 years. So you're never going to make a claim
To get it cheaper.
to get it cheaper. So you can
Okay.
turn a $1,000 policy into a $300 policy.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. So basically, if someone comes to you, and they tell you, "I'm buying a house, but I don't know if I should buy it because I'm scared the house is gonna get flooded," what would you say to that client? Just because the house is in a flood zone.
I would start off with saying it's always great to be covered, depending on the price of the flood policy you're getting. If it's $1,000 for the year, um, you have peace of mind that you have the flood insurance. God forbid something happens, like it does flood. But like I said, it's always good to have if you're in a flood zone. Now, if you're in a flood zone and it's never flooded in 30 years, and you're paying $6,000 a year, bump up the deductibles, get it down as much as you can. But flood insurance is flood insurance. If it's required, then maybe that's not the house for you.
Right, right. But this is why we're here to guide you and help.
Exactly.
A lot of clients buy multifamily houses, but I have two types of clients. One, the ones that buy the houses to live in it. They live in one apartment and then they rent out the other units. And then the investors that only look for houses, multifamily houses, just to invest, to rent it out to tenants. Is there a difference between a homeowner policy and a landlord's policy?
So yes. So a homeowner's policy, you have to be owner occupied. You have to live in it. If you have a two-family house and you live in one of them and you rent out the other, that's still considered a homeowner's policy because you're living in it. A landlord policy would be if you have either a single family or up to 4 family and you rent out all the units. Even if it's a one family, you could rent it out. That's right. A landlord policy.
Okay.
It's a little more expensive because it's more of a risk having someone else in there. You don't know what's going on at all times. So it still covers the house itself, especially if the tenant in there damages it. So you're covered on all aspects for that. What I do see a lot is a lot of these investors love to save money.
Yes.
They'll go with the cheapest quote, but they're not properly covered.
Which is why I say it again, when people don't know, and this is why we're here to educate people,
Yep.
help, guide through the process. But people used to save pennies because sometimes they're saving $50, but they don't look at the coverages they're losing, right?
Exactly.
Something for just saving $50 or $100 a year,
Exactly.
right? So,
Exactly.
which is why it's important to contact someone, a professional like you,
Yep.
to help you.
Yeah, ask, if it's not me, if I'm not your insurance agent, you'd want to ask them questions, make sure you're properly covered, have them go over the policy with you. You need to have water backup damage. God forbid your some type of plumbing system did back up and it leaked everywhere. That's not a flood policy.
Correct.
So you'd want to make sure that's
That would be a
covered.
different type of issue because maybe people get confused, right? People get confused because they have flood insurance as well. Let's say that someone has flood insurance, and let's say the washer stopped working and leaked it leaked and it just flooded the whole basement. But the main cost the main cause of that was the washer.
Exactly.
It was not the river flooding or
And just because they see water in their basement, they think automatically flood.
So
any type of
we
water
want to
is
clarify
flood.
that that's not covered within the flood insurance.
Exactly.
Policy.
That would be coverage in the homeowner's policy if you had that endorsement to add the water backup,
Okay, perfect.
which is only an extra $80 for the year to have.
Which is important to know all of these things.
Yep.
Not too many people talk about insurance like this, and it is important that people know when they're purchasing a property because it's a huge investment.
Exactly.
I get some people, some clients that prefer to buy their properties with cash.
Yep.
Just cash. They don't want to finance. They don't want to deal with banks. Sometimes they ask me, why should I get insurance if I'm not getting a mortgage? I thought it was only the lender's requirement, but I'm not getting a mortgage. Why do I need insurance?
Yes, so I've dealt with a bunch of clients paying with cash before, especially these days. What are the
Yes.
percentage of people paying with cash right now?
I have sold a lot of properties with cash buyers.
Yes.
Cash buyers, yes.
Exactly. So one, they're spending that $500,000 in cash. If you don't get coverage on the house, and I mean, yes, odds are low that something will happen to the house, but you never know.
There's always that percentage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, God forbid something did happen to that house, and it, let's say, it completely burnt down. you just spent that $500,000 cash. Now you're spending the same $500,000 cash to rebuild it because it burnt down.
So now it's not 500, it's now it's $1 million.
Exactly. You don't have any type of insurance. Nothing's covered. So that's a risk they would take, but I've never seen anyone not get insurance when buying cash.
But I always get this question a lot because people would like to say that, but like I said, pennies, but then they're gonna have to spend thousands.
Exactly.
Is there a difference or either in coverages or price with policies for people that are financing versus buying cash, or is it the same policy?
Same policy, because it all falls under the first coverage A of the policy, the replacement costs of your house. So that's where it all bases under. So if the replacement cost doesn't change whether it's cash or finance or anything.
Okay, so that's the main thing about the policy. Then, if they want to add other coverages, you can explain that to the clients as well.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. So these are the main questions that I get from my clients. But if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact information will be below this video. You can always reach out to me. If you have any questions about real estate or anything, we are here to help you. And here is Joe too.
Yeah, if you guys have any question about insurance, other than what we talked about today, or if you had something to add on one of these questions today, I'm a professional, so I'd love to help. So my information is going to be on the bottom of this video as well. You could call, text, email, whatever you like.
Feel free to reach out to us anytime, and we're here to help. Until the next one. Thank you, everybody.